The sun hung low in the sky over Los Angeles, casting an orange hue over the city. But there was no warmth in that glow, only the searing heat of a wildfire that was tearing through the hills with a terrifying speed. The once breathtaking scenery of the area was now shrouded in thick smoke, which twisted and swirled through the streets. Ash rained down like snow, coating everything in a grim layer of gray. The air was heavy with the smell of burning wood and brush, making every breath a struggle. As the fire continued to spread, the fire departments and first responders sprang into action, their efforts all-consuming as they fought to save lives and protect the city. But even the most seasoned professionals knew the gravity of the situation. This fire wasn't just fierce, it was unforgiving. There were entire neighborhoods at risk, and there were lives in danger. Among the brave men and women of the Los Angeles Fire Department, LAFD, was firefighter Alex Martinez, a man who had dedicated his life to saving others. He was a seasoned firefighter, known for his calm demeanor under pressure and his ability to think quickly in life or death situations. But this fire was different. This was the kind of disaster that tests the limits of even the most experienced first responders. Alex had been on the front lines for hours, battling the flames and rescuing families, but his shift was far from over. He had just finished helping evacuate a nearby neighborhood when his radio crackled to life, carrying a new, urgent call. "Firefighter Martinez, we've got a report of a little girl trapped inside a house near the front of the fire line. The house is already partially engulfed. We need you to go in immediately." Alex's heart skipped a beat. The fire was inching closer to that house by the minute. Time was running out. Without a second thought, Alex grabbed his gear and rushed to the rescue vehicle. His team was already on standby, ready to go. As they sped toward the scene, the magnitude of the situation weighed heavily on Alex's mind. The flames were so close now that the heat from them could be felt even inside the vehicle. His palms were slick with sweat, and he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. A little girl. He couldn't stop thinking about her. She was scared, trapped, alone. "Stay focused, Alex. You've done this 1,000 times before," he muttered to himself. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, forcing himself to stay calm. When they arrived, the house was already surrounded by the flickering glow of the wildfire. Smoke poured from the windows, and flames licked at the sides of the house. The fire had already consumed much of the backyard, and the front porch was engulfed in thick black smoke. Every instinct told Alex that the situation was dire, but he knew he had no time to waste. "Get your gear on, we're moving in," Alex barked to his team as he jumped out of the vehicle. They swiftly assembled, setting up hoses and equipment, but Alex knew that the only thing that mattered was getting inside and finding that girl. He couldn't wait for the backup to arrive. He had to move fast. With fire crackling around him, Alex rushed toward the front door of the house. His heart pounded in his chest as he saw the flames creeping closer to the structure. The heat was intense, the air thick with smoke. He hacked at the door with his axe, the force of the blows sending vibrations through his arms. With one final swing, the door splintered open and Alex charged inside. The house was dark and oppressive, thick smoke filling the air like a suffocating cloud. Every breath was a struggle, each one a mix of burning ash and fear. Alex's mind was sharp, even if the situation was chaotic. He called out, his voice hoarse and strained. "Hello? Is anyone here?" There was no answer at first. But then, in the distance, he heard a faint sound, a child's cry. Without hesitation, Alex ran toward the sound, his boots heavy against the floor. The house was falling apart around him, the heat rising to unbearable levels. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. There, in the living room, he found her. A small girl, no older than 7 or 8, cowering under a beam that had collapsed during the fire. She was alone, her face streaked with soot, her eyes wide with fear. She was trembling, frozen with terror, unable to move as the fire roared just outside. Alex's heart clenched as he saw the fear in her eyes. She was just a child, and yet she had been forced to face something that most adults would run from. He knelt down beside her, his voice calm and soothing despite the chaos around them. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here to help you. You're going to be fine," he said gently as he reached out to her. She flinched at first, but his reassuring voice seemed to comfort her. Slowly, the girl stretched out her small hand toward him, her fingers shaking. Alex carefully picked her up, cradling her against his chest. She was so small, so fragile. As he turned to leave, he saw the flames licking at the walls, the smoke thickening by the second. The heat was almost unbearable, but Alex kept his focus on the child in his arms. They made their way to the door, the fire closing in from all sides. Alex's mind raced, but his body was trained for this kind of situation. He knew exactly what he had to do. He moved swiftly but carefully, dodging debris and avoiding the growing flames. Just as they reached the doorway, a blast of heat exploded behind them, and the doorframe began to collapse. Alex barely had time to react, but he dove forward, pushing the girl to safety. They tumbled out onto the front lawn, the sound of the house collapsing behind them. The moment they were clear of the building, Alex handed the girl off to the paramedics who were already on the scene. They rushed her to the awaiting ambulance, checking her for injuries and making sure she was stable. For a moment, Alex stood there, catching his breath. His adrenaline was still surging through him, but he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of relief. He had done it. He had saved her. As the girl's parents, who had been waiting anxiously in the evacuation zone, saw their daughter being carried to safety, a flood of emotions washed over them. They rushed to her side, tears streaming down their faces. The little girl clung to her mother, shaking with fear and relief. Thank God you're safe," the mother cried as she hugged her daughter tightly. The father, still stunned, looked over at Alex, his face a mixture of disbelief and immense gratitude. "You saved our little girl. We can never thank you enough," the father said, his voice thick with emotion. Alex shook his head, his voice calm and steady. "I'm just doing my job," he said, "but I'm glad I could help." The little girl, still holding on to her mother, looked up at Alex. She hesitated for a moment. Then, with a small, trembling voice, she whispered, "Thank you." But then, something unexpected happened. The girl, still in shock but filled with a deep sense of gratitude, stepped forward and wrapped her small arms around Alex's waist. It was a simple, innocent gesture, but for Alex, it meant everything. It was the purest expression of thanks he could ever receive. Alex bent down to her level, returning the hug with a gentle smile. "You're safe now," he whispered softly in her ear, feeling a rush of warmth and pride wash over him. Her parents, still in shock, watched the scene unfold, their hearts swelling with gratitude. The mother wiped her eyes as she looked at Alex. "You don't know what this means to us," she said, her voice breaking. "You've given us back our world." Alex simply nodded. In that moment, he didn't need any words. The girl was safe. Her parents were safe, and that was all that mattered. As the fire continued to rage in the distance, Alex knew that his job was far from over. There were still more lives to save, more families to protect. But for that brief moment, amid the smoke and chaos, he had made a difference. He had saved a life, and that was what kept him going, no matter how dangerous the fire, no matter how fierce the battle.